The biggest myth in real estate is that
Now I'm intrigued.
the smart play is to use income from assets to own liabilities.
What's the most cutthroat thing you've ever done in business? What is the biggest scam in the real estate industry right now?
I have to apologize to my American friends for this. Sorry, not sorry. The biggest scam I'm seeing being pumped out there is that it's better to rent than it is to buy a house. Now, obviously, there's scams like when people hack into your bank and drain your bank account. So that aside, kind of scams that people accept as normal, like saving will make you rich or that it will look after your future. I mean, that's a global scam. It's not true. And most Americans will say it's better to rent than to buy a house. And I think this proliferated from Robert Kiyosaki, actually, because he was, that I can remember, the first person to say that your own home is not an asset. Now, in the UK, you won't be old enough to remember this, mate, but in the UK, we've kind of been raised that our home is our castle. That's even a British saying, your home is your castle. And a big part of securing your pension, your retirement, and your future is to get on the housing ladder as early as you can. Yeah, you need mortgage to do that, of course, and then get it paid off as quick as you can. And then you've got something real and tangible that goes up in value that you own, that no one can take away from you. You have full title. And that, I believe, is still a truism in the UK. But Kiyosaki said your own home is a liability. And he's technically right, but also wrong. So where he's technically right is that anything that you have to pay money into, if you want a simplistic view, is a liability. And anything that pays you money is an asset. That's like the binary A-B simplistic view. But would you pay a few £100s a month into an asset that might be worth hundreds of thousands or millions in 10, 20 or 30 years that you own outright and you get to use it and live in it? You might go, oh, well, I might. Because people say, in America especially, that your home is a liability. So what's the option? Rent. Well, 100% of rent is dead money. Now, people say to me, oh, no, it's not dead money because it's useful because you have to live. Yeah, but you can buy a house over time. You know, you can essentially pay installments to buy a house when you have a mortgage, when you own it. So only the interest on the debt is dead money when you pay a mortgage, but all rent is dead money. And if you think about your own home, when you pay rent, you're paying off the landlord's mortgage. So you are paying off a mortgage when you rent. It's just your landlord's, it's just someone else's. Might as well pay off your own mortgage, not the landlord's mortgage. Also, the highest way to pay monthly for a house is rent in terms of the highest cost. And the lowest way to pay off a house over time is a mortgage, unless you can get a family loan at 2%, which is unlikely. Now, there's loads of other reasons in the UK why owning a home is better than renting. And I'm not saying renting's a scam. I'm saying that these American influencers who say you should never own your own home, they're one-sided, they're myopic. Now, look, if you're 21 and you want to travel the world and you want to see the world and you don't have much money, then rent with 2 or 3 other mates and travel around the world backpacking with friends. I get that part. But, you know, that's a small part. Like when you rent, of course, the carpets, the curtains, you can't do anything to it. It's someone else's house. Whereas your own home, you can make your own castle. There's something huge to be said for, this is my home, exactly how I want it. I've got my office here. I've got my living space here. I've got somewhere where it's comfortable to sleep. I've got my own mattress, you know, because sleep's obviously really important now. So there's the lifestyle and the element of you being able to optimize your life when you have your own home.
Is the argument the down payment? So if I've got a massive lump sum, could I invest it elsewhere to see a better return than potentially a rent.
Well, can you live in Bitcoin? Can you live in gold? Can you raise a family in Bitcoin? Can you raise a family in gold? No, you can't. So if we're looking at it binary, what you could do instead of putting the deposit in your own home is buy Bitcoin or gold. Absolute, no contest, put it into your own home. Now, across the world, the regulations and rules are a bit different. In the UK, you've got trade up tax breaks. So basically, you can get into a starter home, can work a bit harder, afford an upgrade. And when you upgrade, you don't pay any capital gains tax. Maybe in America, the state or federal taxes are different. So, you've got to do your own research on that. But essentially, you can trade up from a starter home to a mansion in 10 or 20 years and not pay any tax on the way up. There's other reasons why owning your own home is way better. But one thing I am going to say is I'm going to create the hybrid answer, because most people are looking for A or B. But two things can be true. You can love the UK and hate the UK, because I love and hate the UK. So two things can be true. So here's what you can do. You can buy 2 or 3 buy-to-lets or small starter homes that you rent out, and then you take the net rental income and you use it to pay off a mortgage. So you could take the investment income and use it to buy your own house. Now, some people would say, well, yeah, I can do that and rent. But your landlord can kick you out at any time. Your landlord can put the rent up a lot. Ground rent, service charges on rentals are crazy right now. And all these things can happen in a rental. They probably aren't going to happen in your own home. But the smart play is to use income from assets to own liabilities. And the Americans think that your mortgage is a liability. I personally don't, but I get what they say. But definitely cars and holidays are liabilities. My first Lamborghini, the Lamborghini Aventador, it was 310 grand new. It was 2015. And I think we paid 255 for it, my business partner and I, because we share some cars. And what we did was we bought this property for 800 grand. We spent max another 6 refurbing it. It's now worth 3.5. We cut an old club into 32 flats essentially, and we've got maybe 36 tenants in it, and the income from that pays for the Lamborghini Aventador, the Aston Martin DBS, the Porsche 911 Turbo. And then, so what we did instead of buying the Aventador is we bought this property. We didn't even put the money in. We got a third-party investor. He put all the money in to buy it, all the money in to refurb it. We gave him a split. We took a split. Our split pays for the Lamborghini, the Aston Martin, the Porsche, all with someone else's money.
That's what 18 years in business gets you. All right, now I'm intrigued. Okay, what is your craziest tenant story?
Okay, so this is actually my business partner. And he has 16 million pounds worth of property, and I taught him how to invest in property. He was about 150 grand in debt. I taught him how to invest in property. He ended up quitting his job. He's actually now my business partner and one of our top trainers. And he had this tenant, and she was, I believe, often a bit late on the rental payments. So he ended up sleeping with her, and now he's married to her. There might be a bit in the middle that you've assumed that I'm not saying he did, but it's a novel way to get your rental payment. Yeah, rent-free. Yeah. So my business partner is still married to her, by the way.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, been married for years. They've got children together. So, I mean, some people would say you shouldn't sleep with your tenants. He would probably disagree.
Yeah. Well, yes.
You weren't expecting that, were you?
No, I wasn't.
I'd just like to say it's not Mark Homer, because everyone might be thinking, oh, that's Mark Homer, because we have what? I think we have 1,350 tenants that we manage. I think we have 350 in our portfolio. And I am 99.9% recurring sure my business partner, Mark Homer, does not sleep with our tenants. Just in case.
What's the biggest property deal you've ever done?
Okay, right. So we bought a ground floor department store with 2 upper floors of completely empty space. And we developed another 2 floors above. So it's now 4 stories. It's about 30,000 square foot, I believe, on the ground floor. We took 1/5 of that, sliced it up, and we rent it out for 50 odd grand a year. We took the 4/5 remaining, which is high street department store, you'd know the name. We took that and we sold it for almost the same money that we bought the entire block. So we bought the entire block for 3.8 million. We sold 4/5 of the bottom floor for 3.6 million. We sold the ground rent, basically the freehold, for 12 times the yearly income. And then we developed the upper 2 stories into 4 and converted them into 100 apartments with 146 tenants, 135,000 square feet, which if you put that in central London, that would be about 200 million pounds.
Wow.
It's in central Peterborough. So it's not quite 200 million pounds. But yeah, we did that in our 30s.
Could you retire on that one deal?
Yep. I could retire myself, my business partner, his wife, my wife, our kids, their kids. We could sell everything else we've got. I think we've got 12 companies. Could sell all of our cars. It's a 7-figure a year income just from one building.
If you can retire you, your parents, your wife, your kids, why don't you?
Because that would be almost a torturous living hell to have nothing really to do for the next 50 years of my life. And were I to retire from what I'm doing, I'd end up starting again doing what I'm doing. So, all my content on social media, all my business related books, my money.school platform, my personal vision is to help as many people on the planet get better financial knowledge. So I don't really like holidays. I have ginger beard, so I don't do very well in the sun. I go from white to pink to white to pink. So I hate the sand, can't stand the sand, can't stand the sea. I watched Jaws as a kid. I'm scared of the sea. So the holidays never work for me unless it's business trips. As you know, we go on business trips. And I found this with a lot of people who are entrepreneurial is, they get the most satisfaction from packing a day and getting loads of work done. And that's me. By the way, I have tried retirement a few times. When I wrote Life Leverage, I retired. I retired when my son was one of the top golfers in the world, and I took him around the world. And it was kind of okay for a bit when my son was playing golf because I could focus on helping him be a great golfer, basically be his coach and his caddy. And but I made that my full-time job. So there are just some types of people that they just want to work and they just want to build and they just want to create. And I am one of those.
What's the biggest myth in real estate?
The biggest myth in real estate is that property won't keep going up. It'll crash. It can't keep going up forever. A lot of people say that. Do your own research, but check this. In 1088, there was a survey done, I think for tax purposes, of the value of all the land and real estate in the UK. If anyone is watching on the YouTube, have a guess in the comments how much you think the entire bank of land and property in the UK was in 1088. I give them 30 seconds. If you're listening on the audio, go to the YouTube, type it in. So we have 1,000 years of data in property. Bitcoin could go to zero because we don't even have 2 decades of data. Gold, we've got thousands of years of data. The best way to predict the future is to look back through the past. So meme coins might have days or weeks of history, which is why most of them go to zero. Stock market investing, however old that is, in the early hundreds of years, not thousands or tens of thousands. So if you can go back far enough and find the price of something, if over time it keeps going up, that's the best indicator that in the future it will keep going up. So the furthest I've been able to go back in property is about 1,000 years, which is pretty good data. And the total value of all the land and property 1,000 years ago in the UK was £1 million. Now, in central London, Kensington, Chelsea, Knightsbridge, you'd be lucky to get a car parking space for £1 million. You definitely wouldn't be able to get a one-car garage for £1 million. So people think that property could go to zero, but how? How can property go to zero? How? The only way property could go to zero is if we have no use for it anymore.
Yeah.
Now, Bitcoin, we don't really have a use for it. Okay, it's a store of value, but it doesn't really have any other utility. So all you need is a lack of trust or one big regulation. By the way, I'm not a Bitcoin hater. I've got Bitcoin. I like Bitcoin. I like decentralization. I think the blockchain's a great technology. But the only time real estate could go to zero is if we never need shelter anymore. We just don't need houses, so we just knock all of them down in the UK because we are our shelter, which obviously even with the weirdest future tech, that's never going to happen. Now, does the property market correct? Yes. Does it at times crash? Yes. And the biggest crash I've ever seen is about 30%, but it recovers pretty quickly. And the curve isn't a 45-degree angle. Well, it is actually. The curve is a 45-degree angle or whatever degree. But when you zoom in and you zoom in and you zoom in and you zoom in, it peaks and troughs, but within the upward ascendancy. So that's the biggest myth in real estate.
In the next 5 or 10 years, what are you more bullish on, property or Bitcoin?
Property, of course.
Why?
Because you can gear up and leverage property. 70%, 65% on commercial maybe. Property has got 1,000 years of proven growth. Bitcoin has got a couple of decades. Bitcoin's probably going to keep going up and it's probably got enough history now, but it's more risky, it's more volatile. I know much more about real estate. You're much more likely to get money to put into real estate than you are into Bitcoin from lending, from traditional banks, and probably from just private investors. Bitcoin's still quite a specific, niche, technical thing. Most people still don't know how to buy Bitcoin. I know anyone watching this says, yeah, it's easy, who already buys Bitcoin and who already knows how to do it. But if you talk to the average person on the street, they don't. Yeah, there's all this talk that Bitcoin could become a reserve. And, obviously Trump's now pretty pro-Bitcoin, but actually he's pro-crypto. And all these Bitcoin evangelists are like, yeah, Bitcoin's going to go to the moon. Trump loves Bitcoin. No, Trump loves his own coin, Trump coin. Trump loves crypto, i.e. Trump will have a coin and Melania will have a coin. He's not championing Bitcoin. He's championing his own wealth and crypto as a potential reserve currency, not necessarily Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is really dependent on, the leaders of the free world like Donald Trump or whoever the president is. So I'm more bullish on real estate. I think a crash is coming in real estate, but millionaires and billionaires love real estate corrections.
How are you going to cash in on that?
The best time to buy property is at the lowest point in its cycle, if you think about it. If you think common sense, what do you do with an asset? Buy low, sell high. Now, I don't sell, so I buy, hold, die. But if you think a cycle normally lasts about 18 years, you'll have a trough and a peak. You'll have a low and a high in that cycle. So if you could time it, which you can't, you do know what's going to happen if you look back through history. You just don't know when. But if you could time it, you'd buy at the bottom point in the cycle and a correction. Well, London's really corrected. Do you know some places in central London, like maybe Knightsbridge, Kensington, Chelsea, the prices are lower than 2016 prices now. So that quietly went under the radar. London is now cheap, relatively. And there's reasons for that. But some parts are already low, relatively.
So
some parts are coming.
Does that mean you're staying cash rich at the moment so you can make the most of that?
I don't want to be cash rich. I want to be liquidity rich. I want to be asset rich. The problem with cash is inflation wipes it out. The problem with cash is security issues. The problem with cash is the banks can just debank you like they did my friend Nigel Farage, just like that. So this whole thing, cash rich, it's a dream of the broke. Even these big investors, Michael Berry, Warren Buffett, who say they're selling all assets and they're holding cash. They're not holding billions in cash. They're holding billions in liquid assets that they can move really quickly. So I prefer to be liquid than heavy on cash. Cash is a problem. Anyone who's rich, cash is a problem. It's a first world problem, but it's a problem because it's devaluing, being deflated by inflation. I always believe that real inflation figures, real inflation to you, what it really is in your life is much higher than what they say. You know, you've got CPI, RPI, you've got CPIH or CPH, basically with housing in it. And that determines a set basket of goods. But your lifestyle might mean that, let's say you travel a lot, hotels have gone through the roof. So if you travel a lot, your personal inflation is really high. Food's gone up a lot. If you're in the UK, energy's gone up 200 to 300%. The biggest increase in a lot of people's life inflation is a mortgage and interest rates. And that's not in most of the inflation figures. So inflation is the increase in prices and the devaluation of money. And of course, they've got all this quantitative easing and all this money printing. They printed nearly $1 trillion in lockdown that's got to be paid back. So yeah, cash, you want to minimize cash and maximize assets, maximize income, maximize liquid assets.
What's the best piece of business advice you've ever received?
It's not what you know, it's who you know.
Explain that for me.
If you know 5 billionaires, you're not going to have a problem raising money. If you're mentored by 5 decamillionaires, you're not going to have a problem solving your money problems. If you've got the best senior team of head of sales, head of marketing, head of finance around you, you can step away from your business and they can run it for you. So it's not what you know, it's who you know.
And any top tips on growing your network if you're starting from zero?
When we started 20 years ago, we used to have to go to live meetings and meet people and shake their hand and talk to them face to face. And that's probably quite underrated now. So it's pretty easy to see where entrepreneurs that are influential that you might want to hang around, or millionaires or billionaires, it's pretty easy to find out where they are now. One, they're probably in Dubai or Monaco or wherever, so you can spend more time there and travel more and run it as a business expense. But 2, follow them all on social media. They tell you where they're going. They update their stories where they are. So I actually think that's the most underrated way. But the other ways you can do it is go to business type events that are set up specifically for business owners, angel and dragon type investing events where people go and pitch and there's investors there. Here's a great hack, and this is what you teach. Start a podcast and go and interview them all. People say to me, is it the views and downloads that's the best thing about your podcast? Because we get about 150 to 200 million views and downloads a year. Nope. Is it the money you've made on your podcast that's the best thing about the podcast? We made tens of millions out of it, front and back end. Is that the best thing? Nope. It's all the people I know, the 26 billionaires I've met, the partnerships, the collaborations. That's by far the best asset that's come out of my podcast.
What's the worst piece of business advice you've ever received?
If you want a job done properly, do it yourself. This advice proliferates from most small businesses who struggle with hiring. And for many people, a small business isn't freedom. It's actually just working for a worse boss doing more hours. Because they had a dream that working for themselves was freedom. but they become micromanagers. They can't let go. They're not good at letting other people make mistakes. They're not good at letting other people do things their way, not your way. They say that, oh, well, the customers just want to talk to me. Well, they do right now. But what if there was a better salesperson than you? What if there was a better marketer than you? There's a better everything than you. Maybe the thing that you're best at is having a broad knowledge of your business. But there's someone who's better at all the specifics and technicalities of everything in your business. So you have to let go to grow.
You got multiple different income streams. How do you pick now what is a good venture and good use of your time versus another shiny object?
Okay, so number one, is this business model a good business model for the future? Which for me probably means, has it got some proof from the past? Because, jumping onto every meme coin or launching your own meme coin has major risks and downsides. So is this a good business model? I.e., I think it's got growth in the future, maybe exponential, but it's also got some history of the past. You could say AI or the evolution of the internet or the evolution of social media. That probably, for example, ticks the boxes. Information, people have always paid to learn, and with the world being really overwhelmed right now, that's probably a good business model. Number two, is it something I could enjoy or learn to enjoy? Number three, is it something I can do well? Number four, have I got some existing experience in it? Yeah. Number five, is it the right time? Because you can have the right opportunity at the wrong time. Like if you're starting up 3 ventures, just because this opportunity looks good, it's probably the wrong time. So I get lots of ideas, and that can be a problem sometimes because it can distract you from what you already decided to do. So I just have a folder called ideas, and anytime I have an idea, I just put the idea in my ideas folder, and I check the ideas folder every 1 to 3 months. And that thing that's still there, that's like, you need to do this thing, you need to do this thing, that's probably the thing you should do. You should probably let ideas incubate for a bit.
Do you think it's possible to maintain friendships with people who don't share your drive and passion for business?
Yes. You could be friends with anyone that you choose to be friends with. I'm just not going to spend much time with that person.
How have your relationships changed as your wealth has grown?
Most of my friends who I spend the most time with are also entrepreneurs and business owners. And I don't really have any friends who aren't. And I've got my legacy friends who I love and admire and respect, who aren't in my world. And that's why you don't ever hear me talking down non-entrepreneurs. And a lot of people are like, sack your friends, sack your family. No, you've just got to think about what gives you energy and what takes it. Because energy can be really hard or really easy. Like imagine you were in a room full of moaners, complainers, and drainers, and you were stuck in that room for 2 hours. How would you feel for the rest of the day? Imagine if you're in a room full of billionaires sharing ideas on, how to develop the entire world, where no idea was a bad idea and they're all riffing off each other. Yeah, great idea. And we could also do this. What do you think, Elon? Yeah, great idea. And we could also do this. What do you think, Jeff? Yeah, great idea. And we could all imagine how you would feel. So energy is much easier to come through you through others than it is to create from you. So make sure you spend time with people who give you energy. Now, I've got a couple of friends who aren't entrepreneurs, but they're really funny. And spending a couple of hours with them gives me great energy. It's just not a business environment, and that's fine. They're those kind of friends. I've also got some entrepreneurial friends who are just fucking negative and grumpy all the time. So it depends on your mission and what you want. It depends on how long you've been friends for with someone. But I would say about friendships, you don't owe anyone anything. And loyalty is good, but there has to be value. And some people are loyal to old friends who don't offer any value to them.
Yeah, there's the a phrase like, oh, don't forget where you come from.
Well, I came from Peterborough, so I want to forget that quite quickly, actually. Yeah, that saying, don't forget where you came from, is unsuccessful people still living where you came from, trying to pull you down. That's what that phrase actually means. What they're also saying is stay humble. Well, humble sometimes is good. Humble sometimes is bad. If you're pitching to a sponsor that where you want a 6-figure deal to get money out of them to be the sponsor for you and my podcast is being humble good.
No.
No. You've got to oversell it, then over-deliver it. The whole undersell, over-deliver doesn't work anymore because you're in a noisy marketplace. I think it's good to be humble about life. And because if you're not humble about life, life will humbleize you. But this whole thing about be humble and, never forget where you came from, I would say just don't forget where you're going and be more focused on where you're going than where you came from. And a lot of people who want to hold you back to where you came from are still there.
If you was to start again and you were in your 20s like me, what would you
Look
be doing?
Look at you smug bastard.
Just throw that in there.
You cocky shit. I just actually be humble.
Yeah, sorry.
So if I was in my 20s like you.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're starting from scratch.
Okay. Do I have my knowledge that I've gained in my 20 years?
Yeah.
Okay. So with the knowledge I have, what would I do differently? What would I do starting again? I'd probably do something similar because it's done all right for me. We've done $250 million in sales just in our information businesses. So that's pretty good. Why would I do anything different? So I would definitely get into real estate and learn how to buy my own real estate as my long-term asset building strategy. I would then set up an information business, teaching people what I know. And if it's real estate I'm learning, it's real estate I'm going to teach. And then I would learn how to invest my own money. So I'd probably learn about Bitcoin and gold and other things. And then as that grows and I can build a team around that, I'll look to raise money to buy a property with other people's money. I'll look to get our students who did our courses and turn them into our trainers. I'd look to get some good quality advisors around me to help me with my assets. And then I free up my time to grow. And then I would launch other businesses related to those streams. And that's exactly what I did.
What's the most cutthroat thing you've ever done in business?
Fired a family member. Ooh.
Can you tell that story?
I don't want to say who it is because it's a family member. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Was that early on?
No. And it was a bit of a mix up as well as a cut. But I'm pleased that I don't make emotional decisions or decisions that are good for me, but not necessarily good for the company. I'm good that I'm able to detach that. I mean, you have some things that are both, like we own supercars in the company, benefits us personally, works for the company. But, at times you're faced with a decision which is easier for you not to make, but better for the company to make. So there was a management mix-up and a job that a family member was doing wasn't getting done, and it just wasn't right. And I also knew it had got to the point where it wasn't right for my family member, which kind of in my head helped me with the decision. But yeah, just had to let that go.
What does disruptive mean to you?
Observe the masses, do the opposite. Be greedy when others are fearful and fearful when others are greedy. And the biggest disruption to your business is probably yourself. So the goal should be to disrupt yourself before competitors or governments disrupt you.
So you've got your famous saying, if you don't risk anything, you risk everything. What's the biggest risk you've ever taken? And did it pay off?
The biggest risk I ever took was not starting my business age 15, 18, 21, 25. I started it at 27. 100 apartment blocks I deem as no risk compared to your dream or your business that you want to start, you never start. So my dad raised me to be an entrepreneur from about age 6. He got me working in his pub about age 6. And I could count and add up at 8 better than any adult because my dad taught me. He would count all the coins in the slot machines and the pool table. And he'd teach me how to add up, the beers and the spirits and the food on the orders. I could do it all in my head. And he was an entrepreneur and he started businesses. He started some, sold some, failed some. And I was raised that way. And then I went to a good college and a good university. Well, I got a good degree. And though they were the biggest threats to my wealth, it's been proven. I got an architecture degree that I've done nothing with. And the only reason I did it was because I thought, because society had indoctrinated me to think that, well, smart people go to university. You know, thick people get an apprenticeship. I'd far rather get an apprenticeship with an entrepreneur now than go to university. I mean, imagine getting an apprenticeship with, you know, an entrepreneur who's running a successful business, earning and learning at the same time. So I've taken no risk of what I have done compared to how risky the things were that I didn't do, like start my business and follow my path and purpose and dream. And I had easily 4 chances to do that. Now, of course, I can't afford it. Oh, it's really difficult. Oh, what do I know? But I had 4 clear chances. Teens, early 20s, mid 20s. I started age 27. And people always say, oh, well, Rob, no regrets. You know, that got you to where you are right now. Yeah, but where would I be if I'd have had another 5 or 10 years in business? Because add 5 or 10 years on to the end now, we may do $1 billion in sales because of how compounding works. So that's the real answer. There's nothing I've done that was that risky.
What is the most disruptive opinion that you have that might get you cancelled?
How we've been led to believe that saving money is good for us and that the banks are here to help us with our future and our retirement. And fundamentally, in schools from an early age, we are indoctrinated to get a good job, therefore pay up to 2/3 of what you earn and spend in taxes and get your mortgage and get your car loan and get your loan for your conservatory and be in debt and pay interest and pay taxes and pay it for 30 or 40 or 50 years. And then when you die, you pay 40% on most of it. And that is an industrial age model that has not evolved, and people are being bred to be consumed by banks and governments for tax and interest and debt. I'm disrupting that with Rob.team and my money school. You know, my mission is to help as many people on this planet get better financial knowledge. Were you taught about how to budget properly at school?
Nope.
Were you taught about how to manage your emotions around money and spending at school?
No.
Were you taught about the difference between an asset and a liability in school?
No.
Did you know that something like Bitcoin was deflationary and something like fiat currency was inflationary?
Didn't even know what those phrases meant.
To me, that's wrong. And that needs to change.
To the next 18 years?
Boom. Right now we have a banking crisis, a potential global recession. If you'd like to learn how to cash in on the crash and not just survive, but thrive in challenging times, I invite you to join us at the Moneymaker Summit Live. The link is robmoore.live/money. I'm subsidizing a small number of tickets from my Rob Moore Foundation, or for a very small upgrade fee, you can get special VIP tickets where you meet me personally, you'll get your book signed, there's a VIP dinner with 6 multimillionaires and bonus money mindset sessions, as well as the special 3 days on getting your tax bill down, your income streams up, my 8 stages of building wealth, my formula for riches, and much more content at robmoore.live/money. The agenda, the details, the dates, and the speakers are all at the link robmoore.live/money.